The 3 moons of Vesper hung low in the purple sky as Elder Tay walked slowly to the center of the great hall. His old legs ached with each step. The room fell silent as he raised his 4-fingered hand. 200 Vespari council members watched, their scaled skin reflecting the dim light. "We have no choice," Elder Tay said. His voice was rough from 3 days of arguing. "The Draconis must be given what it wants or our people will die." No one spoke against him. They had tried everything else. Their weapons had failed. Their shields had failed. Their prayers had failed. The great dragon-like beast that lived in the mountain caves had destroyed 3 settlements in the past month. Thousands were dead. "Our scientists have studied the creature's eating habits," Elder Tay continued. "It seems to prefer soft tissue with high energy content. The human prisoners we captured in the war would be ideal." Commander Hana stood at the back of the hall. Her uniform was clean and pressed, but dark circles showed under her large silver eyes. She had fought in the war against the humans. She had seen their weapons, their determination. She had also seen their children. "Commander," Elder Tay called, "you will select 1 human child for the sacrifice. The Draconis must be appeased by tomorrow's sunset." Hana bowed her head. "Yes, Elder." The prison complex sat at the edge of the capital city. It was a low gray building surrounded by energy fields that glowed blue in the night. Hana walked through the security checkpoints, nodding to the guards who saluted her. "The human prisoners are in Block C," said Officer Dury, a young Vespari with bright green scales. "We have separated the children as ordered." Hana followed him down a long hallway. The walls were bare metal. The floor was cold stone. The lights buzzed overhead. "How many children?" she asked. 7, Dury replied. "Ages 4 to 12 in human years." They stopped at a heavy door. Dury pressed his hand to the scanner and the door slid open with a hiss. The room beyond was small but clean. 7 small beds lined the walls. 6 children huddled together on 2 of the beds, their eyes wide with fear. The 7th child sat alone, reading something on a small tablet. "That one," Dury whispered, pointing to the solitary child. "His name is Jin, 8 years old. Found him hiding in a storage unit on the human outpost. No sign of his parents." Hana studied the boy. He was small even for a human child. His black hair was cut short. His face was round with eyes that seemed too big, too knowing for someone so young. He looked up as they entered, his expression calm. "Hello," Jin said in perfect Vespari. "Are you here to ask me more questions?" Hana blinked in surprise. Few adult humans had mastered their language, let alone a child. "You speak our language well," she said. Jin shrugged. "I like languages. I was learning before the war. Your officer gave me this tablet with some books on it." He held up the device. "I've been practicing." The other children watched in silence, clinging to each other. They did not understand the conversation. "Come with me, Jin," Hana said. "The council wishes to speak with you." It was a lie, but she couldn't bring herself to tell him the truth. "Not yet." Jin stood up without argument. He was wearing the standard gray jumpsuit given to all prisoners, but someone had found him shoes that almost fit. He followed Hana out of the room, looking back only once at the other children. "Will they be okay?" he asked as the door closed. "Yes," Hana lied again. They walked through the prison complex to a small room where Officer Dury had prepared a meal. It wasn't much, standard rations, but it was the best they could offer. "Eat," Hana said. "We have a long journey tomorrow." Jin sat at the table and looked at the food. "Where are we going?" Hana sat across from him. "To the mountains. Why?" "There is something there that needs to see you." Jin picked up a piece of fruit, examining its purple skin before taking a bite. "Is it the dragon everyone is afraid of?" Hana stiffened. "How do you know about that?" "The guards talk. They don't think I understand, but I do." Jin took another bite of the fruit. "They say it's destroying villages. They say it's angry." "Yes," Hana admitted. "It is very angry." "And you're taking me to it?" Jin asked. His voice was steady, but his small hands trembled slightly. Hana couldn't lie to him again. "Yes," Jin nodded slowly, as if this made perfect sense. "Am I coming back?" The question hung in the air between them. Hana looked at this small human child, this enemy who wasn't really an enemy at all, just a victim of a war he didn't start and couldn't understand. "I don't know," she said finally. Jin finished his meal in silence. When he was done, he looked up at Hana with those 2 knowing eyes. "I'm ready." They gave him a small room for the night with a real bed instead of a prison cot. Hana posted guards outside, but they weren't really necessary. Where would he go? The entire planet was hostile to him. In the morning, Hana found Jin already awake, sitting on the edge of his bed. Did you sleep? She asked. A little, he said. I had dreams about the dragon. What kind of dreams? Jin tilted his head, thinking. Not scary ones. It was big and had lots of teeth, but it wasn't trying to eat me. It was trying to tell me something. Hana felt a chill run down her spine. It's time to go. The transport ship was small but fast. Hana sat in the pilot's seat with Jin beside her. 4 armed guards sat in the back, their weapons ready. No one spoke as they flew over the vast forests of Vesper, heading toward the mountain range that dominated the northern continent. It's beautiful, Jin said, looking out the window. The trees are so tall. They are ancient, Hana replied. Some have been growing for thousands of years. We have old trees on Earth too, Jin said. My mom took me to see them once. She's a scientist. She studies plants. Where is your mother now? Hana asked, though she feared she knew the answer. I don't know, Jin said quietly. We got separated when your soldiers came. She told me to hide in the storage unit. She said she'd come back for me. Hana focused on piloting the ship. There was nothing she could say that would help. The mountains grew larger as they approached. Massive peaks of black stone thrust up from the forest, their tops covered in snow despite the warm season. Hana guided the ship toward a plateau halfway up the largest mountain. There, she said, pointing to a dark opening in the mountainside. That's where the Draconis lives. Jin pressed his face against the window. It's a cave. Yes, a very old cave. Our people have known about it for generations, but few have ever gone inside. Those who didn't come out. The ship landed on the plateau with a soft thud. The engines powered down, leaving them in silence. The 4 guards stood checking their weapons. Those won't help, Jin said, looking at their guns. Will they? One of the guards, an older male named Quan, shook his head. No, child. They will not. But it makes us feel better to have them. They stepped out of the ship into the cool mountain air. The cave entrance loomed before them, a black hole in the gray stone. Ancient symbols were carved around the opening, worn by time but still visible. What do those mean? Jin asked, pointing at the symbols. No one knows anymore, Hana said. The language is too old. Elder Tay was waiting for them along with a group of council members and scientists. They had arrived earlier on a larger ship that now sat at the edge of the plateau. You have brought the sacrifice, Elder Tay said, his eyes on Jin. This is Jin, Hana replied. He is 8 years old. Jin looked up at the old Vesperi. Hello, Elder Tay. The elder seemed startled to hear his name from the human child's lips. You speak our language. Yes, Jin said. Commander Hana says I'm going to meet the dragon. A murmur ran through the gathered Vespari. No one had told the child exactly what was happening, yet he seemed to know. The Draconis has demanded tribute, Elder Tay said carefully. We believe you will. Satisfy it. Jin looked at the cave entrance. You wanted to eat me, it wasn't a question. The blunt statement spoken in a child's voice made several of the council members look away in shame. It is necessary, Elder Tay said. For the survival of our people, Jin nodded slowly. I understand. You do? Hana couldn't hide her surprise. Yes, Jin said. Sometimes you have to do scary things to help people. He looked up at Hana. My dad was a soldier. He said that's what being brave means. Doing scary things because they need to be done. A deep rumble came from within the cave like distant thunder. The ground trembled slightly beneath their feet. It knows we're here, one of the scientists whispered. Jin took a deep breath. I'm ready. Hana knelt down to look him in the eyes. Jin, She stopped, not knowing what to say. Jin smiled at her. It was a small, sad smile that no child should ever have to give. It's okay, Commander. Maybe the dragon just wants a friend. With that, the small human child turned and walked toward the cave entrance. His steps were steady, his back straight. He didn't look back. As Jin disappeared into the darkness, Hana felt something wet on her face. She touched her cheek and realized she was crying, a very human reaction that her people rarely experienced. The rumbling from the cave grew louder. The ground shook more violently. Everyone stepped back, weapons raised, and then silence. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours. Commander Hana stood with the other Vespari at the mouth of the cave, waiting for the sounds they all feared. The roar of the Draconis, the screams of the human child. But there was nothing. What's happening? Whispered Officer Dury, his hand tight on his weapon. I don't know, Hana replied. She looked at Elder Tay. who stood with his eyes fixed on the dark cave opening. "We wait," the elder said. "The Draconis will either be satisfied with our offering, or it will come for more." Night fell on the mountain. The Vespari set up a camp at a safe distance from the cave. No one wanted to leave until they knew if their plan had worked. Hana sat by a small fire, unable to eat the food that was offered to her. "You should rest, Commander," said Quan, the older guard. "I will take first watch." "I can't sleep," Hana said. "I keep seeing his face." "He was so brave," Quan nodded. "Too brave for one so small." "He thought the dragon wanted a friend," Hana said quietly. "What kind of child thinks that way?" "A special one," Quan replied. "Perhaps that is why the scientists chose him." But Hana knew the truth. Jin hadn't been chosen for any special quality. He had simply been the right size, the right age, alone and unclaimed. An easy sacrifice. Morning came with no sign of the Draconis. The Vespari scientists monitored their equipment, looking for any movement within the cave. "There are heat signatures deep inside the mountain," one reported, "but they're not moving toward us." "Is the child still alive?" Hana asked. The scientist checked his readings. "There is a small heat signature near the larger ones." "It's moving, so." "Yes, it appears the human is still alive." A murmur ran through the camp. This was unexpected. The Draconis was known to consume its prey quickly. "Perhaps it's saving the child for later," suggested one council member. "Or perhaps," said Elder Tay, "something else is happening." They waited another day, and another. 3 full days passed with no sign of the Draconis emerging from its lair. The camp grew tense. Some wanted to leave, believing their plan had worked. Others wanted to send in probes to see what was happening. "No," Elder Tay said firmly. "We will not risk angering the beast. We wait." On the morning of the 4th day, the ground began to shake. It started as a small tremor, but quickly grew stronger. Loose rocks tumbled down the mountainside. The Vespari grabbed their weapons and formed a defensive line facing the cave. "It's coming," Quan said, his voice tight with fear. A deep, rumbling growl echoed from within the cave, growing louder with each second. The sound vibrated in Hana's chest, making it hard to breathe. Then came a new sound, one that made no sense at all. Laughter, a child's laughter. "Hold your fire," Hana shouted as a massive shape began to emerge from the darkness. The Draconis was even larger than the stories had claimed. Its body was as long as 3 transport ships placed end to end. 6 powerful legs moved with surprising grace, each ending in claws that could tear through metal. Its scales shimmered with colors that shifted in the sunlight. Deep blues, purples, and greens that seemed to flow like water across its body. But it was the creature's head that held everyone's attention. It was massive, with 6 glowing eyes arranged in a circle and jaws that could swallow a Vespari whole. And sitting on top of that head between 2 curved horns was Jin. The human child was laughing with delight as the Draconis moved into the sunlight. He held onto one of the horns with both hands, his small body bouncing slightly with each step the creature took. "Hi, Commander Hana," Jin called out, waving with one hand. "Look who I found." "This is Day." The Vespari stood frozen in shock. The Draconis, Day, stopped a short distance from their line, lowering its head slightly so that its eyes were level with the gathered crowd. Jin slid down the creature's neck with practiced ease, landing lightly on one of its front legs before jumping to the ground. "Jin," Hana said, her voice barely a whisper. "You're alive." "Of course I am," Jin said, smiling. "Day wouldn't hurt me. We're friends now." Elder Tay stepped forward, his aged body trembling not just with fear but with confusion. "This is impossible. The Draconis is a mindless destroyer. It has killed thousands of our people." Jin's smile faded. "Day isn't mindless. He's really smart. And he's really sad about all the fighting." "Sad?" repeated one of the scientists. "The creature has emotions." "Of course he does," Jin said, as if this should be obvious. "He's been trying to talk to you for years, but you never listened. You just kept shooting at him and trying to block his home with big walls." The Draconis, Day, made a low rumbling sound. Jin turned to look up at the massive creature, nodding as if he understood. "Can you communicate with it?" Hana asked, taking a careful step forward. "With him," Jin corrected. "And yes, I can. It took me a little while to figure it out, but Day is really patient." To demonstrate, Jin made a series of clicks, growls, and humming sounds. The Draconis responded with similar noises, though much deeper and louder. "He says he's sorry for scaring everyone," Jin translated, "but you were digging too close to his eggs." Eggs? Elder Tay's eyes widened. The creature is breeding? He nodded. Day is the last male of his kind. There are 3 females in other mountains. They only lay eggs once every 100 years. The place where you were building your new city? That's right on top of a really old nesting ground. The eggs need the heat from the special rocks there. The scientists began talking all at once, their voices rising in excitement and disbelief. Hana could hardly process what she was hearing. The Draconis wasn't attacking out of mindless rage, it was protecting its young. Jin, Hana said, kneeling down to the boy's level. How did you learn to speak with Day? Jin shrugged. I just listened. When I first went into the cave, I was really scared. But Day didn't try to eat me. He just looked at me for a long time. Then he made sounds and I tried to copy them. It's kind of like singing, but with your whole body. As if to demonstrate, Jin made a complex series of sounds, his small body swaying slightly. The massive Draconis lowered its head even further, one of its 6 eyes focusing on the child. It responded with a gentle rumble that Hana could feel through the soles of her feet. What did you say to it? To him? Hana asked. I told him you're my friend, Jin said, and I asked if he would please not eat anyone else. Elder Tay stepped forward, his fear seemingly forgotten in the face of this miracle. And what did he say? He said he never wanted to eat anyone. He just wanted you to stop hurting his family. Jin looked up at the massive creature with clear affection. These people helped make this planet nice to live on a really long time ago. They're supposed to take care of it. But when your people came and started changing things without asking, it made them sad and angry. The implications of what Jin was saying began to sink in. The Vespari had settled on this world 500 years ago, believing it uninhabited except for simple animal life. They had never considered that the Draconis might be intelligent, might have rights to the land. Can you ask him something for me? Hana said to Jin. Jin nodded. Sure. Ask him if there's a way we can live here together in peace. Jin made the strange sounds again, his face serious with concentration. The Draconis listened, then responded with a series of low growls and clicks. He says yes, Jin translated, his face breaking into a smile. He says his people have shared worlds before. But you have to promise to listen when they tell you where not to build or dig. Elder Tay stepped forward and, to everyone's surprise, bowed deeply to the Draconis. We will listen, he promised. And we thank you, Jin, for teaching us how. The human child beamed with pride. Can I show Day around your city sometime? He's never seen it up close without everyone screaming and running away. Hana couldn't help but laugh at the innocent question. Perhaps we should start smaller. Maybe Day could meet with our scientists first. Jin nodded seriously. That's a good idea. Day knows a lot about plants and rocks and stuff. He's really old, like thousands of years old. As the sun began to set on the 4th day since Jin had walked into the dragon's lair, the Vespari found themselves facing a future they could never have imagined. The destroyer they had feared for generations was now sitting calmly before them, with a human child as their translator and guide. Commander, Jin said, tugging on Hana's uniform. Can I have something to eat? Day's food is kind of gross. Hana smiled and took the child's hand. Yes, Jin. I think we can find you something better than dragon food. As they walked back to the camp together, Hana looked over her shoulder at the massive creature watching them with ancient, intelligent eyes. The Draconis, Day, nodded slightly as if giving his approval. The sacrifice had become a savior, and nothing on Vesper would ever be the same. Word spread quickly through the Vesperi settlements. At first, many didn't believe the reports. How could a human child, an enemy no less, communicate with the dreaded Draconis when their best scientist had failed for generations? It must be a trick, said Council Member Sook during an emergency meeting in the Great Hall. Perhaps the humans have some technology that controls the beast. I saw it with my own eyes. Elder Tay replied firmly. The child speaks to the Draconis, and he responds. There is no technology involved. Commander Hana stood at attention beside the main doors. She had been called to give her account of the events on the mountain. Jin was in another room, being examined by Vespari doctors to make sure he was healthy after his time in the cave. Commander, called Elder Tay, please tell the council what you witnessed. Hana stepped forward, her back straight. The human child Jin entered the cave as ordered. We expected him to be consumed by the Draconis. Instead, after 3 days, both emerged. Jin was riding on the creature's head. He has somehow learned to communicate with it using sounds that resemble the Draconis' natural vocalizations. And you believe this communication is real? Asked Council Member Sook, her scales flashing with doubt. I do, Hana said without hesitation. Jin translated the Draconis' day's words. He told us things we could not have known otherwise, such as the existence of eggs and other Draconis in distant mountains. The council chambers erupted in worried whispers. More of these creatures? The thought was terrifying. Silence, Elder Tay called. This is not a cause for fear, but for hope. If what Jin says is true, the Draconis are intelligent beings who helped shape our world long before we arrived. They attacked our settlements only because we threatened their young. The doors to the chamber opened and Jin walked in, accompanied by 2 Vespari doctors. The human child looked around with wide eyes at the grand room with its high ceiling and glowing lights. Wow, he said. This room is bigger than Day's cave. Some council members shifted uncomfortably at the casual mention of the creature that had haunted their nightmares for generations. Jin, Elder Tay said gently. Thank you for coming. The council has questions for you. Jin nodded and walked to the center of the room where a small platform stood. He climbed up so everyone could see him better. How did you learn to speak with the Draconis? Asked Council Member Sook, getting straight to the point. Jin thought for a moment. I listened, and I watched. Day makes sounds, but he also moves his body in certain ways when he talks. It's like a dance with sounds. And he understood you immediately? Another council member asked. No, Jin said. At first he just watched me. I think he was surprised I wasn't scared. Well, I was scared, but I didn't run or scream. I just sat down and waited. After a while he made some sounds and I tried to copy them. He seemed happy when I did that, so I kept trying. How do you know the creature is male?
Asked a Vespari scientist who had been allowed to attend the meeting. Day told me, Jin said simply.
The females are bigger and have more horns. They stay with the eggs most of the time. Dee visits them, but his job is to protect the whole territory. The questions continued for over an hour. Jin answered each one patiently, though sometimes he had to think hard to find the right words in the Vespari language. He explained how Day's people, the Draconis, had been on the planet for thousands of years. They had helped shape the mountains and forests, making sure the right plants grew in the right places. They breathe fire, Jin said, to the shock of everyone present, but not to hurt things. They use it to clear old trees so new ones can grow, and to warm the special rocks where they lay their eggs. Fire? Repeated Commander Hana. We've never seen them use fire. Day says they only use it when they need to, Jin explained. Fire is special to them. Sacred, I think, is the word. They don't waste it. As the meeting continued, Senior Researcher Sun arrived with a report from the science team that had been studying the mountain area. Elders, council members, he said with a bow. We have confirmed unusual mineral deposits in the region where the Draconis attacked our new settlement. These minerals emit a low level of heat and radiation, perfect for incubating eggs that require specific temperature conditions. This confirmation of Jin's claims silenced the remaining doubters in the room. The child was indeed communicating with the Draconis, learning things that the Vespari themselves had not discovered despite their advanced technology. Jin, Elder Tay said, his voice solemn, would you be willing to help us establish proper communication with Day and his kind? To create a peace between our peoples? Jin's face lit up. Yes, Day wants that too. He's been really lonely. His people used to talk to the other beings who lived here before, but they left a long time ago. Other beings? Several council members asked at once. Jin nodded. Day showed me pictures on the cave walls. They looked kind of like you, but with fewer fingers and no scales. They left when the weather changed a lot about 1,000 years ago. The implications were staggering. An earlier intelligent species had lived on Vesper? Had communicated with the Draconis? The scientists in the room were practically vibrating with excitement. There is much we can learn, Elder Tay said. But first we must establish trust. Jin, would Day be willing to meet with a small group of our scientists and leaders? I think so, Jin said. But no weapons. Weapons make him nervous. No weapons, Elder Tay agreed. Commander Hana, would you organize this meeting? Hana bowed. Yes, Elder. When should it take place? Tomorrow, Jin said before Elder Tay could answer. Day is coming to the edge of the city tomorrow. He wants to show me something. The council erupted again, this time in alarm. The Draconis is coming here? Council Member Sook asked, her voice rising. We must warn the people. Prepare defenses, no, Jin said firmly, surprising everyone with his forceful tone. That's exactly what you shouldn't do. Day is coming in peace. If you bring weapons or scare people, he'll think you don't want to be friends. The room fell silent. A human child was telling the Vespari High Council what to do, and they were listening. The boy is right, Elder Tay said finally. We must show trust if we expect to receive it in return. Commander Hana, you will escort Jin to meet with Day tomorrow. Take only volunteers who are willing to approach without weapons. I volunteer, said Senior Researcher Sun immediately. As do I, said Quan, the older guard who had accompanied them to the mountain. By the end of the meeting, 5 Vespari had volunteered to meet with the Draconis. Jin looked tired but happy as Commander Hana led him from the council chambers. Are you okay? She asked as they walked through the hallways of the government building. That was a lot of questions. Jin nodded. I'm okay. I'm just hungry again. Talking is hard work. Hana smiled. Yes, it is. Especially when you're building peace between species. She took him to the dining hall, where the cooks had prepared special food for him based on what the doctors said humans could eat. She ate hungrily while Hana watched, still amazed that this small being had accomplished what generations of her people could not. Jin, she said as he finished his meal, aren't you angry with us? We took you from your people, we were going to sacrifice you today. Jin looked up at her, his eyes serious. I was scared and sad at first. I miss my mom and dad a lot. His voice wavered slightly. But Day says everything happens for a reason. If you hadn't taken me to him, maybe your people and his would still be fighting. Maybe more people would die. You are very wise for one so young, Hana said softly. Jin shrugged. Not really. I just listen. That's what my mom always says is the most important thing to do when you meet someone new. Just listen. As night fell over the Vespari capital, news of the coming meeting with the Draconis spread. Some people packed their belongings, ready to flee if the creature attacked. Others gathered in public spaces, discussing what this could mean for their future. In a comfortable room provided for him, Jin slept peacefully, unaware of the commotion his friendship with Day had caused. And on the mountain, visible from the highest towers of the city, a large shape moved under the light of the 3 moons, making its way slowly, carefully toward the settlement it had once threatened to destroy. The next day would bring changes no one could have predicted, all because a child had done what adults could not, listen without fear. Morning came with a clear sky and a sense of tension that hung over the Vespari capital. News had spread overnight. The Draconis was coming to the city. Many residents had chosen to stay indoors while others gathered at safe viewing points, curious but cautious. Commander Hana arrived at Jin's room early. The boy was already awake, sitting cross-legged on his bed and looking out the window at the mountains in the distance. Good morning, Jin, Hana said. Are you ready for today? Yin nodded, his face serious. Day is nervous. He hasn't been this close to a city in a long time. How do you know he's nervous? Hana asked, curious about this connection between the human child and the ancient creature. I can feel it, Jin said, touching his chest. Here, it's like a buzzing feeling. Day says all his people can share feelings with those they trust. This was new information, and Hana made a mental note to tell the scientists. That's remarkable. Can all humans do this? Jin shook his head. I don't think so. My mom used to say I was extra sensitive to things. She called me her little antenna. He smiled at the memory, then looked sad. I miss her. Hana felt a pang of guilt. In all the excitement about the Draconis, it was easy to forget that Jin was a child separated from his family because of war. We will try to find your parents, Jin, she promised. When things are more settled, Jin brightened a little. Thank you. They ate breakfast together, joined by Senior Researcher Sun, Officer Quan, and the 3 other volunteers who would meet with Day. Everyone was quiet, each lost in their own thoughts about what the day might bring. Where will we meet, Day? Asked Sun, breaking the silence. The big field at the edge of the city, Jin said between bites of food. The one with the tall grass. Day says it's far enough from buildings that people won't be too scared, but close enough that leaders can come see him. How thoughtful of him, Quan said, sounding genuinely impressed. Day is very thoughtful, Jin agreed. He's been watching your people for hundreds of years. He knows a lot about you. This comment sent another ripple of surprise through the group. The idea that the Draconis had been observing them, studying them, was both fascinating and slightly unsettling. After breakfast, they made their way to the meeting site. A small crowd had gathered at a safe distance, held back by Vespari security forces. Elder Tay and several council members waited in a small pavilion that had been set up overnight. No weapons, Jin reminded everyone as they approached the field. Not even hidden ones. They can smell the metals you use in your guns. The Vespari looked at each other in surprise. Their weapons used a special alloy that had a distinct odor, but they hadn't realized the Draconis could detect it. "We are unarmed," Elder Tay assured him. "As promised." Jin nodded, satisfied, then turned to look at the mountains. "He's coming." At first, no one else could see anything. Then a dark shape appeared against the morning sky. Massive wings spread wide as the Draconis soared toward the city. The crowd gasped. Many had never seen the creature in flight, only glimpsed it during attacks or in grainy images captured by security drones. Day was magnificent in the sunlight. His scales shimmered with colors that seemed to shift and flow as he moved. His 6 eyes glowed like amber gems. His wings, fully extended, cast a shadow over half the field as he circled once, then descended with surprising grace for a creature of his size. The ground trembled slightly as he landed. Day folded his wings against his body and lowered his head, all 6 eyes blinking as he surveyed the gathered Vespari. "Day!" Jin called happily, running across the field toward the massive creature. Several of the Vespari made sounds of alarm, but Commander Hana held up her hand. "Let him go. He knows what he's doing." Jin reached the Draconis and placed his small hand on the creature's snout. Day made a rumbling sound that somehow conveyed pleasure rather than threat. Jin spoke to him in that strange language of clicks, growls, and humming sounds. Day responded, his massive head moving slightly as he communicated. After a few minutes, Jin turned and waved to the waiting Vespari. "It's okay. You can come closer." Dee says hello. Slowly, cautiously, the small group approached. Elder Tay led the way, his aged body moving with dignity despite his obvious nervousness. Commander Hana walked beside him, ready to help if needed. The others followed a few steps behind. When they were about 10 meters away, Day lowered his head even further, bringing his eyes level with the Vespari. One massive eye, larger than Elder Tay's head, blinked slowly. "Day says welcome," Jin translated. "He is honored to meet with the leaders of the Vespari people in peace." Elder Tay bowed deeply. "The honor is ours. We apologize for the misunderstandings of the past. We did not know you were an intelligent being trying to protect your young." Jin listened as Day made a series of sounds, then translated. "Day accepts your apology. He also apologizes for the damage he caused. He was afraid and angry, but he knows now that many innocent Vespari died because of his actions." The formal greetings continued for several minutes, with Jin translating between the two species. The Vespari scientists watched in amazement, recording everything for later study. "I have a question," said Senior Researcher Sun, stepping forward after Elder Tay nodded permission. "How is it that Jin can understand you when none of our people could?" T's response was longer this time, with complex sounds that Jin listened to carefully before translating. "He says it's partly because I'm small and wasn't carrying weapons, but mostly it's because humans and Draconis share something in I'm not sure of the word, our makeup? Our bodies?" Jin looked frustrated at not finding the right term. "Our biology?" suggested Sun. "Yes, that's it." Jin nodded. "Day says humans and Draconis both have special parts in our brains that Vespari don't have. These parts help us understand each other's sounds and feelings. The old people who lived here before you had them too." Sun's eyes widened. "Fascinating. This suggests a common evolutionary path or perhaps even genetic engineering in the distant past." Jin looked confused by these big words, but he continued translating as Day made more sounds. "Day says there's more. He brought something to show us. Something important." The Draconis turned his massive body slightly and used one clawed foot to carefully open a pouch-like fold in his scales that no one had noticed before. From this natural pocket he gently removed an object and placed it on the ground before them. It was a stone tablet, about the size of a Vespari data pad but much thicker. Strange symbols were carved into its surface, symbols that looked similar to the ones around the cave entrance. "What is this?" Elder Tay asked, leaning forward to see better. Jin translated Day's response. "It's a record from the before time. It shows how Day's people and the old ones and humans all work together to make this world better. Humans? Hana repeated in shock. But humans only arrived in this star system 50 years ago. During the expansion, Jin listened to Day's explanation, his young face growing more serious as he tried to understand the complex ideas being shared. Day says humans were here before, a long, long time ago. They came in big ships like you did. They helped Day's ancestors make the air better and plant special trees. But then something bad happened, a big storm in the stars. Most humans left, but some stayed. The ones who stayed eventually became like the old ones who were here before you. The implications were staggering. If what Day was saying was true, humans had visited this world thousands of years ago, perhaps as part of an ancient colonization effort lost to history. Some had remained and evolved differently over time, becoming the species that the Vespari historical records mentioned finding traces of when they first arrived. This changes everything we thought we knew about our world, Sun said, his voice filled with awe. About human history, too. Elder Tay looked at Jin with new understanding. Perhaps this is why you could communicate with Day when we could not. Perhaps it is not chance that brought you to us, but something deeper. Jin shrugged, uncomfortable with such big ideas. I just wanted to help, and I didn't want to get eaten. This simple statement broke the tension, and several of the Vespari made the clicking sound that was their version of laughter. Even Day made a rumbling noise that seemed amused. As the morning continued, more Vespari gradually approached, their fear giving way to curiosity. Jin moved between groups, translating Day's words and helping everyone understand each other. The scientists examined the stone tablet, taking images and beginning the long process of trying to decipher its ancient writing. Commander Hana stood back, watching it all with a sense of wonder. Just days ago, they had been at war with humans and living in terror of the Draconis. Now, because of one small child's ability to listen and communicate, they were on the verge of a new era of understanding. It's remarkable, isn't it? Said Quan, coming to stand beside her. What is? Hana asked. The human factor, Quan replied. We thought we were so advanced with our technology and science, yet it took a human child to show us what we were missing. Hana nodded, watching as Jin laughed at something Day had communicated. Perhaps that is the lesson in all of this, that sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from the most unexpected sources. As the sun reached its highest point, casting short shadows across the field, the future of Vesper was being rewritten, not through war or technology, but through the simple, powerful act of communication across the boundaries of species. And at the center of it all was Jin, a human child who had been meant as a sacrifice but had instead become a bridge between worlds. 6 months passed quickly on Vesper. The planet completed half its journey around its sun, and the 3 moons cycled through their phases many times. During these months, everything changed. Jin lived in a special house built at the edge of the city. It had a large open area where Day could land and rest. The house was designed by both Vespari architects and Day himself, who used his knowledge of ancient building methods to make it strong and comfortable. Every day, Jin worked with the Vespari scientists and leaders. He helped them learn the basics of Draconis language and taught Day more about human and Vespari ways. He became a bridge between 3 very different species. Jin, are you ready? Commander Hana called as she entered the house one morning. The Earthship will arrive today. Jin looked up from the breakfast table where he was eating with senior researcher Sun. The boy had grown taller in the past 6 months. His face was tanned from days spent outdoors with Day, and his eyes held a wisdom beyond his years. Yes, I'm ready, Jin said. But his voice was quiet. Do you think they'll be angry? Hana sat down beside him. Why would they be angry? Because I helped you. Because I made friends with Day. Jin pushed his food around his plate. The war was still happening when I came here. The war is over now, Sun reminded him gently. Thanks in large part to you and Day. This was true. News of the communication breakthrough with the Draconis had spread quickly. When the Vespari High Council realized that humans might have a special ability to connect with the ancient creatures who helped maintain the planet's ecosystem, they had quickly sought peace talks. The war, which had been fought over colonial rights to several planets in the system, ended with a new treaty. Humans and Vespari would share the worlds, with guidance from the Draconis and other native species about how to live on them without causing harm. The Earth representatives are coming to thank you, Jin, Hana said. Not to punish you. Jin nodded, but he still looked worried. I hope my parents are with them. This was the one shadow that had hung over the past 6 months. Despite searching the records of human colonies and prisoners of war, they had not been able to locate Jin's parents. The chaos of the war had scattered many families, and record-keeping had not been a priority during the fighting. We will keep looking, Hana promised, as she had many times before. After breakfast, they made their way to the landing field where the Earthship would arrive. Tay was already there, his massive form curled comfortably at the edge of the field. He had become a common sight in the capital city, and most Vespari no longer feared him. Day, Jin called, running to his friend. The humans are coming today. The Draconis made a series of rumbling sounds that Jin now understood perfectly, without having to translate into words. It was a language of emotions and images more than specific terms. I know, Jin replied to sounds only he fully understood. I'm nervous too. Elder Tay arrived with the full High Council. They wore their formal robes decorated with symbols that represented peace and welcome. In the past months, the Elder had come to deeply respect both Jin and Day. He had even started learning some basic Draconis communication, though he lacked Jin's natural ability. A historic day, Elder Tay said, his voice carrying the weight of its importance. The first official diplomatic visit from Earth since the peace treaty. The crowd grew as more Vespari gathered to witness the event. Many brought their children, who were especially fascinated by Jin, a human child who could talk to dragons. A low hum filled the air as the Earthship entered the atmosphere. It was much larger than the Vespari vessels, gleaming white against the purple sky. Everyone watched as it descended slowly, landing jets kicking up dust from the field. Jin stood between Hana and Day, his small hand resting on the Draconis' scales for comfort. The ship settled onto the landing pad with a soft thud. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a door slid open, and a ramp extended to the ground. The first person to emerge was a tall human woman in a formal uniform, decorated with symbols of rank. She was followed by several other humans in similar clothing. They paused at the top of the ramp, taking in the scene before them, especially the massive Draconis watching them with 6 glowing eyes. That's Admiral Park, Sun whispered to Jin. She led the peace negotiations. Jin nodded, his eyes scanning the group of humans for any familiar faces. His shoulders slumped slightly when he didn't see his parents. Admiral Park and her team walked down the ramp. They were met halfway by Elder Tay and the High Council members. Formal greetings were exchanged, with translators helping both sides understand each other. Then Admiral Park looked past the Vespari leaders to where Jin stood beside Day. Her eyes widened slightly. Is that him? She asked, her voice carrying across the field. The child who changed everything? Elder Tay nodded. Yes, this is Jin, friend of Day and bridge between our peoples. The Admiral walked toward Jin, her steps measured and careful as she approached the Draconis. She stopped a respectful distance away and bowed slightly. Jin, she said, on behalf of Earth and all human colonies, I thank you. Your courage and compassion have saved countless lives. Jin shifted uncomfortably under the attention. I just did what seemed right, he said quietly. The best kind of hero, the Admiral replied with a smile. Then she turned to look up at Day. And you must be the Draconis we've heard so much about. It is an honor to meet you. Day lowered his massive head, all 6 eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of respect that the humans wouldn't understand without Jin's help. He says the honor is his, Jin translated. He has waited a long time to meet humans again in peace. The formal part of the meeting continued, with Jin translating between Day and the human delegation. The Admiral was clearly fascinated by the Draconis and asked many questions about their history and abilities. As the discussions continued, a second ship appeared in the sky. This one was smaller, marked with medical symbols. What's this? Elder Tay asked, looking at Admiral Park. A surprise, she replied with a smile. For Jin. The small ship landed at the edge of the field. Its door opened and 2 people rushed out. A woman with short black hair and a tall man with glasses. They wore simple civilian clothes and looked around frantically until their eyes found Jin. Jin, the woman cried, her voice breaking. Jin! Jin froze, his eyes going wide. Mom, Dad? And then he was running, faster than anyone had ever seen him move, across the landing field toward the 2 humans who were also running toward him. They met in the middle, collapsing into a tight embrace, all three crying and laughing at the same time. "We found them 3 weeks ago," Admiral Park explained to the watching Vespari. They had been rescued by a neutral medical ship during the evacuation, but were taken to a different system for treatment. The father was injured during the attack. It took time to match their records with Jin's. Hana felt tears in her eyes as she watched the family reunion. She had grown to care deeply for Jin during these months, becoming something like an aunt to him. Seeing him with his real family brought both joy and a touch of sadness. Day made a low musical sound that needed no translation. It was clearly happiness. Jin finally pulled away from his parents and turned to look back at Day and the Vespari. He said something to his parents, who nodded, though they looked nervous. Then all three walked back toward the main group. "Mom, Dad," Jin said, his voice shaking with excitement. "This is Day. He's my friend, and this is Commander Hana and Elder Tay and Senior Researcher Sun. They've been taking care of me." Jin's mother looked up at the massive Draconis, her eyes wide but not fearful. "Thank you," she said simply, "for protecting my son." Day rumbled softly and Jin translated. "He says your son protected him too, and taught him that not all new things are dangerous." Jin's father bowed deeply to the Vespari leaders. "Thank you for keeping our son safe. We heard what happened, how he was meant to be." He couldn't finish the sentence. "A sacrifice," Elder Tay said solemnly. "Yes, it is our deepest shame and our greatest fortune that it led instead to understanding. Your son has changed our world, Dr. Lee. He has taught us to listen before we fear." The day continued with formal meetings and celebrations. Plans were made for the future, joint research projects, cultural exchanges, and a special program to identify other humans who might have Jin's ability to communicate with the Draconis. As the suns began to set, Jin sat with his parents on one side and Hana on the other. Day curled around them all in a protective circle. The boy looked happier than Hana had ever seen him. "What happens now?" Jin asked, looking up at the adults. "Will we stay here or go back to Earth?" Jin's mother smoothed his hair. "That's something we need to discuss. The Admiral has asked if we would consider staying, at least for a while. They want to establish a permanent human Vespari Draconis communication center, with you as the first student. And teacher," his father added with a smile. "You know more about Draconis communication than anyone." Jin's face lit up. "So we can stay? All of us together? If that's what you want," his mother said. Jin looked around at the strange family he had formed, his human parents, his Vespari friends, and the ancient dragon who had become his closest companion. He nodded firmly. "It is," he said. "This is where I belong." As darkness fell over Vespar, the 3 moons rose in sequence, casting silver light over the gathering. Humans, Vespari, and a Draconis sat together in peace, all because a child had been brave enough to listen when others had only known how to fear. The sacrifice had become a beginning. The enemy had become a friend, and a world that had known only conflict found a new path forward, guided by the wisdom of its oldest inhabitant and the courage of its youngest visitor. No one could have predicted it. But everyone was grateful it had happened.